Good evening, everyone. It's Sunday, August 16, 2026, 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. It's a Sunday, and it's our third session playing through The Actress, the final part of a trilogy of cases for New York Noir written by Anna, who's in the channel with us. Before we do a short recap, let's just talk about a couple other things. First, earlier today at 1 p.m., I had a session, the second session of Swords Against, which is a very unusual game. I'm not even going to tell you what it's about, but if you like codes and ciphers and you're interested in a real challenge that's going to take us a long time to solve, you might want to check out the video from this afternoon or last week. And then this coming Saturday at 1 p.m., I have scheduled another design diary for New York Noir. That will be design diary number 14, where I talk about what's new in the world of New York Noir and what we've been working on and new volunteers, and I'll talk about this case as well. So I do hope if you're interested in New York Noir as a project, you will tune in this coming Saturday in 6 days. Lots new to talk about, lots of exciting stuff. I asked Jonathan how his weekend was. He said he had a little family get-together. And Isara has joined us. Anna is here. Anna says, I recommend rereading the Greenwich Village Library Lead and the Village Vanguard. First few sentences, I made some changes to them. Okay, and I have printed out those two leads for us to reread. If we were using the digital version, we would just read it from the digital version and be updated, but we're using the printed version. So I have printed those two copies. I think that's about it. I do want to get on the record here in case this happens to me. So I have these blue cups. They're these blue ceramic matte cups. They're actually made in Japan. They're by a company called Dansk, a very famous ceramic company. They actually outsourced these cups to two different factories in two different companies. And I am very particular about cups. I have found that, especially for coffee, that the cup you drink out of makes a huge difference. Probably no surprise to the world of wine drinkers that they're very particular about different glass shapes of wine, and it seems like it's all bullshit. Most of what goes on in the wine and coffee world is complete bullshit. But personally, for myself, I have found that the cup makes a difference, and the texture of the cup and shape and everything. And I have found these cups that I love. They're sort of, it's a little hard to see here, but it's a matte finish, and it's got this very particular lip. So anyway, I've bought like 5 or 6 of these because they occasionally get chipped. I get them on eBay. And, but this afternoon I went to wash it. It gets dirty because of the way I brew the espresso, so don't pay any attention to that. Anyway, so I've got 2 or 3 of these in rotation, and I went to wash it, and the handle just came off. The handle of the other cup that I've now disposed of just came off. It didn't even crack. Nothing tapped it. It just like separated. So that makes me a little nervous that I'm going to be drinking out of this one day on screen. And it's just going to, do I have to like stress test this, each cup? So anyway, if that happens, I'm getting a discount of the embarrassment because I have told you that it could happen. That means it's not as embarrassing if it happens. All right, let's get back into our game. Now, when we left off Friday night, it was 5 p.m. on day 2. And here are the leads that we've followed so far on day 2. Our day is going to end at 8 p.m. And at 8 p.m. we have been told that we're going to have to answer questions and wrap up the case of the collector. So I'm not going to recap this case. It makes no sense to be watching this if you haven't watched the previous stream, so just stop watching now. But I'm going to assume everyone else here has been following along. 2 cases. One is of this mysterious collector who's after what we now believe is Edgar Allan Poe, manuscript called The Sphinx, at this dinner. And the other case is this kidnapping, we think fake self-kidnapping of this actress. On day 1, we were totally focused on the actress because we were afraid that we had to find her by the end of the day, by the morning. Turned out that was not quite right. But now we've been told on day 2 that we really better know by 8 p.m. everything there is to know about the collector. And this is a case where Anna did a nice job of setting expectations. It says, look, at 8 p.m., your day ends, read the questions. At that point, you have to present the collector's whole case with all the details and evidence you found. So we started the day then by going to the house, breaking into the house of the person we think works for the collector, this guy Gant, aka Finley, and we found a letter from the collector. Let's see if we can look at that. Now, we read this letter, and he's saying, I've asked around about you. You can hire someone to do the job I need to do, $2,000 and $2,000 more. When you get it, he says you have to get this document from Edgar Allan Poe that's being presented at this dinner, this old manuscript called The Sphinx. And there were 2 really interesting things here. The first one is he confirms that's what he's after. That's great. He says a couple of interesting things. He says, it's going to be at the dinner. You're going to have to steal it at the dinner. And then he says, P.S. Don't worry. I'll know if the job was a success because, as a matter of fact, I will be attending the dinner myself to keep an eye on things. So we figured out by now what the collector wants, and now we're told he or she is actually going to be at this dinner along with whoever's been hired to steal it. And we have figured out that it's going to be a woman con woman who's going to orchestrate the actual stealing of it. So we know it's a woman. But the really cool part about this letter is we got this sentence that we chewed on for a while. In the midst of this letter, he says, you see, Mr. Gant, I'd like to retrieve something that should belong to me already. I think it is my rightful inheritance, just as all my names are. You don't know my real name, of course, but I'm sure you've heard about the name I will sign at the end of the letter, the collector. So he said, what the hell does that mean? Just as all my names are. We chewed on that for a while. And eventually we got a list of attendees, guest list of this dinner. And we looked through that. We looked for various names. And we weren't sure what to look for. And then we saw something else in this letter. It says, posted in Boston. And Jonathan said, you know, I remember something. Edgar Allan Poe's first book he wrote was authored under the pseudonym a Bostonian. And we said, aha, that is a coincidence. And we went and we reread the history of Edgar Allan Poe at the library. And it gave us his original last name. It's not Poe, it was Allan, it was Perry or something. And when we went back to look at the list, we noticed someone. Elizabeth Perry. I think it was Edgar Allan Perry. And we went in here and we saw Elizabeth Perry. And we connected the clues about the names and the Boston thing. And we know this is personal. And what our theory now is that if Elizabeth F. Perry from Boston, who's attending this dinner, is going to be our collector. That's our working theory. I love it. It's a very satisfying theory. If it's wrong, it's a shame, and shame on Anna that it's wrong. But it is really sort of rolling the dice because we've got several dozen names here. Hard to investigate these people because most of them are out of town. The only one, what we're looking at here is the revised list. So part of what's giving us some extra confidence that this is the right person is that the original list, there's the original list, and on this list we've got newish people underlined and then some last minute replacement. So before we got the new one, we said, boy, I hope Elizabeth Frances Perry is still attending. And yes, indeed, she is still attending, and she's a relatively new person on the guest list. So that's great. The only thing we might want to look is for some last minute cancellations. Like maybe if we think this is a woman, maybe we could try Louise Heath. But I'm willing to put all our eggs in this one basket of Elizabeth Perry. I'm just convinced it's her. Then the second thing we did was we just debated about whether we're going to find this con woman. And with all the credit I've given Jonathan about the figuring out the Elizabeth Perry angle, Jonathan's gut was like, I think we know everything we need to know about this party. We know we know who the collector is. And we've met the con woman. We went to the Village Vanguard where we were told she hangs out. We got a lap dance from her. We know she has this deep blue eyes with a Russian accent. She was wearing a red wig. But we got to look at her. We know she's in her 30s. So she's going to be disguised. But Jonathan was thinking that his gut was telling him that that's all we need to know. We're going to go to the police. We know they're going to try to steal it. We think they may be just trying to create a distraction and then they're going to swap it. We looked into the glass pedestal. It's easy to steal. If you create a distraction, you could swap it. We thought maybe they're swapping it. Maybe we should check where they might be making an imitation. But I was fairly certain that we hadn't tracked it all down. There was some other angle about this con artist woman that we could find. And what happened was we went to the hotel to talk to all the guests of honor. They didn't really help us. Then we went and we talked to the women who are running this, like the 4 old-timey women, the Edgar Allan Poe Society women. And one of them, when we asked about the hotel and menu and stuff, she said, you're going to have to talk to the hotel guy. And when we talked to the hotel guy, we said to him, hey, anything unusual, any last-minute changes of anything? And he said, well, yeah, now that you mention it, I had a waitress call out at the last minute, like a day or so ago, and I called the temp agency and they sent me a new waitress. We said, oh yeah, what does she look like? And he's like, she's got blue eyes, she's about 30. He gave us her name. We knocked on the door of this woman with this name, and she said, and it's an 80-year-old woman. She says, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not a waitress. I don't have this job. We went to the temp agency, and the temp agency says, yeah, we did send over the new waitress. It was kind of strange, actually. This woman comes in the week before and says, I'm looking for a job as a waitress at the Hotel Lafayette. If such a job comes up by any chance, give me a call. And the temp guy was like, boy, that's awfully specific. And sure enough, the woman called out, and our new woman got sent to this job. So essentially, we have identified exactly how the con woman is getting in, who she's pretending to be. We know her name, we know her job, we know exactly how to catch her. So we are now quite confident that we understand the whole collector arc and how they plan to steal it. An incredibly satisfying little case here. Have I summarized that well enough? So we're 3 hours early on solving that. On the other hand, we have not made much progress today on Georgia Price. Georgia Price is our whole secondary case, this whole troupe of Shakespearean actors who are acting in A Midsummer Night's Dream, rivalries between Audrey Seals, the experienced movie actress, and Georgia Price, the film actress trying to break into Broadway. A whole crazy convoluted thing where these two are acting together, but they are newly divorced because this guy is cheating on another woman who's also in the play. She herself got divorced. This guy ended up destroying 2 marriages, his own and Eloise Kellett's. Georgia Price turns out to be a real piece of work. She's a narcissist. We talked to her psychiatrist, got a whole tutorial on narcissism. We know she's a cocaine addict, and she's a publicity hound. And she's got one friend, her husband, who's this Lord Lytton, says, I don't even think my wife has any friends. So she does have a friend, Benji Miller, who looks surprisingly like Jimmy Cagney. And when we talked to her maid says, boy, she had a stack of magazines and a map of the city, and they're gone. And 2 and 2 together, Jonathan said, I know what those magazines are for. They were what was used to create the fake ransom note. And the map of the city was for her to hide out for a day. She disappears. We discussed all the reasons why we thought it wasn't a real kidnapping. And at the some point at the beginning of today, we figured out, we convinced ourselves, or maybe last night, we convinced ourselves that she had faked her own kidnapping. We thought either she had gone to a nearby hotel or to stay with her one friend, Benji Miller, who might be supplying her the cocaine. But we failed to find her. We tried to figure out what hotel she would be staying at. We tried to go to Benji's house, which we saw her walking south towards Greenwich Village, where he lives. So that's still a very good option, but we couldn't, no one was home. And then we showed up in the paper, an article about us trying to solve this kidnapping. Boss yelled at us for taking on this job sort of freelance unofficially, but he assigned it to us now officially, and he wants us to solve it by tomorrow. But we haven't solved it yet, so whether we can solve it or not, I'm not sure. But in the remaining hours of the day, we probably want to try to make a little more progress on the disappearance, kidnapping of Georgia Price. And we've got some new leads to talk to the actors that we haven't yet talked to. And we got those new leads in a new newspaper that came out. We now know where two of them are performing. Ada Bossi, who's sort of a crossover in our case. And there we are in the paper. We also want to talk to someone else who's writing these articles for the Daily News. There is a little horse racing through line going on here. A little discussion. There are a couple things in here that seem like they might be keying us into the Edgar Allan Poe line. But we might review our leads and see where we have what our to-do list is. But is there anything I am missing in the recap, and anything that the group wants to pursue in any particular order? Okay, Jonathan says, I think we need to go back to the theater. The Theater of the Shakespeare Company. Was there a return to? I don't really have a return to the theater. I don't think. According to our notes, I don't think there's anything more in the Shakespearean theater for us. We had a couple leads that we could return to, but I think we did them. There was the birth and death certificates that we could return to. And then there was Columbia University we could return to that I believe we did return to. In which case I should cross it off. We didn't return to the birth or marriage certificates, but I don't think there's any place to go back, according to me, for the theater. The theater has a go back on Sunday. The theater has a go back on Sunday. Lots of them, lots of entries do. But I don't think there's anything to go back to at the theater. We could go back to it if you wanted to see it, if you wanted to make sure. But we absolutely can go to the Belasco and track down Audrey Seals and Sylvester Tracy. That's where they are. The divorced couple who perform well that we haven't yet been able to find. We know where they are now. They're at the Belasco, or at least that's where they're acting. And then the others were at the Great Gatsby. I guess we did that. So perhaps before we do that, let's collect our list of places we want. Let's go through our notes and figure out. Let's double check we can't go back to the Shakespeare Theater. Okay, let's go ahead and do that right now. So Shakespeare Theater, according to my notes, Madison Square Theater is 52749. So let's go ahead and follow through that. 52749. Okay, if it's so 52749 says right here if it's Thursday or if it's Sunday. So that's it. There's nothing more to do at the theater. Okay, let's walk through our notes and refresh ourselves about any to-do items. So when we talk to the rookie kid, Lucas, he makes a connection between an article in the paper on human bondage and this Lewis Ponder who's in our site. I see there's a little blinking, but I can see that I can't see it because of that. Okay, let's see. I guess we should really do the reread Anna wanted first. Ah, yes. Okay, good point. Anna wanted us to revisit the Greenwich Village and the Village Vanguard. Okay, so let's reread the Village Vanguard lead first. This was a lead where we went and found our con artist woman. And this is the rewrite here. Bartender remembers you from Monday, which is our case 1, I think. Are you looking for L again, detective? No, I'm not looking for the Playboy this time, but a dancer named Tilly. That's the waitress. She'll call her for you. So I don't know who L is, but if we read case 1, maybe 64132. There's no entry for 64132. Maybe the lead change. Oh, Vanguard Nightclub. Why is it that it's changed lead numbers? Why would that be? Oh, continued. I wonder if I've done that wrong. I wonder if I printed out the wrong lead. Well, Anna can tell me. I can always bring it up on the tablet if we need to. So here was our case 1. There's a Playboy that we were checking. Does anyone remember who this Playboy is? Elmer Richardson that we were looking for? I don't really remember it in that case. We haven't played this case in a year. We haven't played the first case in a year. But Jonathan may have played it more recently. You printed out the right lead. He was the one having the affair with the woman whose husband stole the painting. Okay, and the husband hired the muscle to beat him up. Okay. So anyway, the guy says, are you looking for him? And we say, no, we're looking for Tilly. All right, here we go. Turns out you need to pay for a private booth if you want to talk to Tilly. It won't be cheap. You pay. Okay, this is everything that happened before. In her 30s, heavy makeup, red wig, bright blue eyes, bikini and thigh boots. She says Russian accent. This is everything we already read. We ask about, we're trying to figure out which one is hired by the collector. And this is the description of the guy working for the collector. So we ask about this guy description. She doesn't say anything. And then we say, Finley offered you a job. We're testing her. And then she stops. She springs up. Who the fuck are you? Some cop. And then we say, I'm going. And then we leave. So nothing new here. The only thing that's new is this line here, I think. So it is connected to our case, but I don't think that adds much to our lore. It doesn't really add any insights to us. It's just a guy saying, you're not asking for this, you're asking for that. Okay, and here's Greenwich Village Library. Now, this has changed because the top part is all the same. But this is new. If you want to ask about a specific piece of writing and you've circled Mark X1, then go here. If you're looking for ancestry records, so maybe we could definitively look at the ancestry of Edgar Allan Poe to confirm our Elizabeth. But what is this new thing? So do we have X1? I think we do. This is probably where we've learned about the Sphinx, X1. So here's a new lead we can go to, and I suspect we're going to be asking about we're going to be looking into the Sphinx document, but Jonathan has a theory about whether we're looking for L. Jonathan says maybe we're looking for Elmer the Playboy. Jonathan says maybe we should go back and talk to Elmer about Tilly. Maybe he knows something. That's an interesting idea. Okay, I'm going to put it on here. Find Elmer. What was his last name? Do you remember? But before we do that, let's follow up on this new change that's been written. 21051. If it's in the old printout. 21051 is not in the old printout. So I guess Anna wants me to do this. You want us to go here, yeah, Anna? But it's a read that's not in my version. So the only way to do that is to bring it up online. That's okay. Let's see if we can get this to work today. All right, let's see if we can get this to work today. Yes, okay, here's the new New York Noir website. I'm pretty proud of how it looks. Elmer Richardson was our guy. Okay, so here you're going to see, what the block? Here you're going to see how if we were playing this case online using the online tools and map, how it would work. So let me just, well, I don't want to show you all this stuff because I'll show it off next week at the design diary. So we're going to go to cases, and I am going to go to the actress. And we're just going to go right here. I could get the PDF and search, but we're just going to say, let's open it up in the map tools. So here is our case. Here is our map of Manhattan if we wanted it, but we don't want it. We want here, and this could be our history, bookmarks, white page search, yellow page search, whatever. We don't need any of that, but we're just going to say Control F. No, that wasn't it. It's not Control F. It must be Control G. Okay, and we're going to say we want to go to 21051. And here we are. It's the library. It's the rare manuscripts section of the library, and it looks like there were probably multiple ways to get this. So if we had gone, let me just put this aside for a second. I guess the easiest way to read this online is this view right here. Okay, and I can see the reason that you wouldn't normally have this buffer, you'd have it go through the whole page. But the reason I have that buffer is because the camera is in the way. And so I need this to be a little bigger. Yeah, not quite that big. So that's an artificial gap there so that it's good for my camera. Okay, so before we go there, I don't love that hint, but we can talk about that in a second. So before we read this, let me just see, leaving aside that hint, we'll go back to it. But if we had instead, we've gone to the Greenwich Village Library. If we had gone to the normal public library, you can see there is a, where's our rare, special collections and rare books. So let's just see how much of this is already in the normal library. So if we go to 67401, there's no entry. So if you just go to the information desk, no entry. And if we go directly to 37042, so as I suspected, if you go directly to special collections and rare manuscripts, it's asking the same thing we were checked for here, X1, 89624. 4. I suspect this is going to be what we're reading here. And it is. So let me just take a moment to make a little suggestion to Anna and other case writers. So what's the idea? The idea is that if we tried going to the general library, there's no entry. That's a little confusing. And the way Anna wants us to do it is she wants us to go to the Greenwich Village Writers Library to learn about Edgar Allan Poe, local of Greenwich Village and writer. And then she wants us to go to the rare books collection of the New York Public Library to do specific research. And the reason that's a little confusing is because the natural instinct is to go to the head desk of the New York Public Library whenever you're interested in books. And if you play my cases for New York Noir, we have a contact there who we know and always talks to us. So the way I would suggest to do this kind of thing is to say, assume the player can go to the New York Public Library. That's the place that's on the research guide. And I would put at that information desk a little hint to the Greenwich Village Library and a little hint that here are the special departments in the New York Public Library if you know you're interested in something. So I wouldn't put this. I wouldn't say, hey, I wouldn't give such a strong hint as if you want to ask about a specific writing and you do here, then send the people to the rare books. I wouldn't do that. I would say at the Greenwich at the GV library, the writer's library, I might say, if you're looking for a specific old book, you might check the New York Public Library, or I might just say something more obtuse, like you're at this library, which has information about these local writers, but if you want more comprehensive historical look at them, go to the New York Public Library, not send them right to that lead, just give them a hint. And then then I would have an entry for the New York Public Library information desk that said something like, if you're looking for local Greenwich Village writers, there happens to be a very fancy, amazing writers library in Greenwich Village. And if you're looking for an old historical book, you might try our special collections. Anna says, don't forget I worked from another research guide. Yeah, this is not a criticism. This is suggestions for future authors. Don't send them right where they need to go, but give them a little nudge. And the New York Public Library is the best place to give the nudges to the other places, because you should expect that people will visit the New York Public Library. Okay, back to this lead, which is different. No, it isn't. It's basically what we print, what's online. So let's just read, I guess we can read the online one, but I expect it's the same as our printed one. So 30 minutes, we're now down to 5:30. You asked the library's rare manuscript expert, a hunchbacked, beak-nosed old man, about Poe's manuscript, The Sphinx. Yeah, I heard about this new sensation. It was believed to be lost until a few months ago, when Dr. Parrott, a Princeton professor and a renowned Poe expert, published his article about it. Apparently, he found the manuscript of the short story amongst the university's unlisted manuscripts when he was thumbing through them, looking for something else entirely. Poe wrote this story during his New York years, but he mentions in one of his letters that its outline originates from years before that. The idea supposedly came from one of his early sweethearts, who at one time became a victim of an optical illusion. She thought she saw a big monster through the window, was so terrified she didn't dare get out of her bed. After Poe discovered this little spider the girl was so afraid of, he immediately saw a potential story in this occurrence, so put a few lines on paper. I took up this idea again after the New York cholera epidemic in 1832, only wrote the whole story years later in 1844. And here's a volume of Poe's short stories in case you want to read the Sphinx. As if. So, do we think that this old sweetheart might be a relative of the collector? Does that change our theory that the collector would be a descendant with his last name? Do we now think that because the idea came from an early sweetheart, do we think that it would be a relative of that woman? Do we need to go look up who his early sweethearts? Jonathan says, I don't think it changes it for me. No, I don't think so either. But okay, circle R1. And then, if you decide to read this short story after all, you gain culture mark points, and we get, and we get a new document. So, do we want to read this story of the Sphinx? Look how cool this is. Okay, so what have we got here? We've got a full short story that is 1, 2, 3 pages long. So the question I have for you is, do you want to hear this story? I mean, Anna is all about the history. We get a whole bunch of culture if we do. Sort of depends on your tolerance for this stuff, but I'll tell you how I feel. I feel like we're sort of in for a penny, in for a pound, and these are this is all about history. And if the Sphinx is what this collector is trying to steal, that for 3 cases we've been trying to track down, I guess we should see what this is all about. I'll try to read it quickly, though. The Sphinx by Edgar Allan Poe. During the dreadful reign of the cholera in New York, I had accepted the invitation of a relative to spend a fortnight with him in the retirement of his cottage Orney on the banks of the Hudson. We had here around us all the ordinary means of summer amusement, and, what with the rambling in the woods, sketching, boating, fishing, bathing, music, and books, we should have passed the time pleasantly enough, but for the fearful intelligence which reached us every morning from the populous city. Not a day elapsed which did not bring us news of the death of some acquaintance. Then, as the fatality increased, we learned to expect daily the loss of some friend. At length, we trembled at the approach of every messenger. The very air from the south seemed to us redolent with death. The palsying thought, indeed, took entire possession of my soul. I could neither speak, think, nor dream of anything else. My host was of a less excitable temperament, and although greatly depressed in spirits, exerted himself to sustain my own. His richly philosophical intellect was not at any time affected by unrealities. To the substances of terror he was sufficiently alive, but of its shadows he had no apprehension. His endeavors to arouse me from the condition of abnormal gloom into which I had fallen were frustrated in great measure by certain volumes which I had found in his library. These were of a character to force into germination whatever seeds of hereditary superstition lay latent in my bosom. I had been reading these books without his knowledge, and thus he was often at a loss to account for the forcible impressions which had been made upon my fancy. A favorite topic with me was the popular belief in omens, a belief which, at this one epoch of my life, I was almost seriously disposed to defend. On this subject we had long and animated discussions, he maintaining the utter groundlessness of faith in such matters, I contending that a popular sentiment arising with absolute spontaneity, that is to say, without apparent traces of suggestion, had in itself the unmistakable elements of truth, and was entitled to as much respect as that intuition which is the idiosyncrasy of the individual man of genius. The fact is that soon after my arrival at the cottage there had occurred to myself an incident so entirely inexplicable, and which had in it so much of the portentous character, that I might well have been excused for regarding it as an omen. It appalled and at the same time so confounded and bewildered me that many days elapsed before I could make up my mind to communicate the circumstances to my friend. Near the close of an exceedingly warm day, I was sitting, book in hand, at an open window, commanding, through a long vista of the river banks, a view of a distant hill, the face of which nearest my position had been denuded by what is termed a landslide of the principal portion of its trees. My thoughts had been long wandering from the volume before me to the gloom and desolation of the neighboring city. Uplifting my eyes from the page, they fell upon the naked face of the hill, and upon an object, upon some living monster of hideous conformation, which very rapidly made its way from the summit to the bottom, disappearing finally in the dense forest below. As this creature first came in sight, I doubted my own sanity, or at least the evidence of my own eyes, and many minutes passed before I succeeded in convincing myself that I was neither mad nor in a dream. Yet when I described the monster, which I distinctly saw and calmly surveyed through the whole period of its progress, my readers, I fear, will feel more difficulty in being convinced of these points than even I did myself. Estimating the size of the creature by comparison with the diameter of the large trees near which it passed, the few giants of the forest which had escaped the fury of the landslide, I concluded it to be far larger than any ship of the line in existence. I say ship of the line because the shape of the monster suggested the idea. The hull of one of our 74s might convey a very tolerable conception of the general outline. The mouth of the animal was situated at the extremity of a proboscis some 60 or 70 feet in length, and about as thick as the body of an ordinary elephant. Near the root of this trunk was an immense quantity of black, shaggy hair, more than could have been supplied by the coats of a score of buffaloes, and projecting from this hair downwardly and laterally sprang two gleaming tusks, not unlike those of the wild boar, but of infinitely greater dimension, extending forward parallel with the proboscis, and on each side of it was a gigantic staff, 30 or 40 feet in length, formed seemingly of pure crystal, and in shape a perfect prism. It reflected in the most gorgeous manner the rays of the declining sun. The trunk was fashioned like a wedge, with the apex to the earth. From it there were outspread two pairs of wings, each wing nearly 100 yards in length, one pair being placed above the other, and all thickly covered with metal scales, each scale apparently some 10 or 12 feet in diameter. I observed that the upper and lower tiers of wings were connected by a strong chain. But the chief peculiarity of this horrible thing was the representation of a death's head, which covered nearly the whole surface of its breast, and which was as accurately traced in glaring white upon the dark ground of the body as if it had been carefully designed by an artist. While I regarded this terrific animal, and more especially the appearance on its breast, with a feeling of horror and awe, with the sentiment of forthcoming evil which I found it impossible to quell by any effort of the reason, I perceived the huge jaws at the extremity of the proboscis suddenly expand themselves, and from them there proceeded a sound so loud and so expressive of woe that it struck upon my nerves like a knell. And as the monster disappeared at the foot of the hill, I fell at once fainting to the floor. Upon recovering, my first impulse, of course, was to inform my friend of what I had seen and heard, and I can scarcely explain what feeling of repugnance it was, which in the end operated to prevent me. At length, one evening, some 3 or 4 days after the occurrence, we were sitting together in the room in which I had seen the apparition, I occupying the same seat at the same window, and he was lounging on a sofa near at hand. The association of the place and time impelled me to give him an account of the phenomena. He heard me to the end, at first laughed heartily, and then lapsed into an excessively grave demeanor, as if my insanity was a thing beyond suspicion. At this instant I again had a distinct view of the monster, to which, with a shout of absolute terror, I now directed his attention. He looked eagerly, but maintained that he saw nothing, although I designated minutely the course of the creature as it made its way down the naked face of the hill. I was now immeasurably alarmed, for I considered the vision as either an omen of my death, or worse, as the forerunner of an attack of mania. I threw myself passionately back in my chair, for some moments buried my face in my hands, and when I uncovered my eyes, the apparition was no longer apparent. My host, however, had in some degree resumed the calmness of his demeanor, and questioned me very vigorously in respect to the conformation of the visionary creature. And when I had fully satisfied him on this head, he sighed deeply, as if relieved of some intolerable burden, and went on to talk with what I thought a cruel calmness of various points of speculative philosophy, which had heretofore formed the subject of discussion between us. I remember his insisting very especially, among other things, upon the idea that a principal source of error in all human investigations lay in the liability of the understanding to go underrate or overvalue the importance of an object, though through mere misadmeasurement of its propinquity. To estimate properly, for example, he said, the influence to be exercised on mankind at large by the thorough diffusion of democracy, the distance of the epoch at which such diffusion may possibly be accomplished should not fail to form an item in the estimate. Yet can you tell me one writer on the subject of government who has ever thought this particular branch of the subject worthy of discussion at all? He paused here for a moment, stepped to a bookcase, and brought forth one of the ordinary synopses of natural history, requesting me then to exchange seats with him so that he might better distinguish the fine print of the volume. He took my armchair at the window, and, opening the book, resumed his discourse very much in the same tone as before. But for your exceeding minuteness, he said, in describing the monster, I might never have had it in my power to demonstrate to you what it was. In the first place, let me read to you a schoolboy account of the genus Sphinx, of the family Crepuscularia, of the order Lepidoptera, of the class of Insecta, or insects. The account runs thus. 4 membranous wings covered with little colored scales of metallic appearance, mouth forming a rolled proboscis, produced by an elongation of the jaws, upon the sides of which are found the rudiments of mandibles and downy palpi. The inferior wings retained to the superior by a stiff hair, Antenna in the form of an elongated club, prismatic, abdomen pointed. The death's-headed sphinx has occasioned much terror among the vulgar, at times by the melancholy kind of cry which it utters, and the insignia of death which it wears upon its corset. Ah, here it is, he presently exclaimed. It is reascending the face of the hill, and a very remarkable-looking creature, I admit it to be. Still, it is by no means so large or so distant as you imagine, for the fact is that as it wriggles its way up this hair, which some spider has wrought along the window sash, I find it to be about the 16th of an inch in its extreme length, and also about the 16th of an inch distant from the pupil of my eye. So it's just a story about a guy who's seen a spider in the window pane, and as thinking he's seeing it a mile away, and it must be huge. So we read that story, a little bit of history, circling S1, pretty neat, and getting ourselves 5 culture marks. I think the highlight of that, 3, 4, 5, the highlight of that is just thinking that that is the document that this collector has been trying to find for several days now, and we have now actually read it. It puts us a little more back really in time in this place. All right, it's time for our first break. I'll see you in 8 minutes. One of the things we're trying to do with these playtests is figure out, brainstorm ideas for New York Noir and cases. I think I just had a brilliant idea. A very simple one, but a brilliant one. So let me spend a moment explaining what I'm thinking. I think we've been very clever in figuring out who the collector is. But it may very well be that we can trace down some ancestry records to get confirmation of our theory. And I think we should do that. But this is a general thing that can happen, and different authors have a different take on how clear evidence should be about something. And one of the things that can occasionally feel sort of bad is when you're clever and figure out something ahead of time, and then you get like redundant confirmatory information that you were right. And then it feels at the end like, well, I'm being graded the same as someone not as smart as me, because we both came to the same conclusion, these two players, but I came to it early before these extra information. And it occurs to me that we have an opportunity to do something completely symmetric to what we do with hints. When you take a hint, we now say, here is the hint. If this information helped you, check 2 demerits. And I think what we might try to adopt as a general strategy, a recommended strategy for writers, is feel free to give redundant confirmatory clues, but maybe add a little line that says something like, if this already occurred to you, get +4 demerits, something like that. So I'm suggesting that, like, if we got ancestry records now and it confirmed the name of the person we've already surmised is the collector, it would be really nice to have a little thing there that gave us a reward for having already anticipated what we were going to find. I think that's a really nice way to reward clever players. I think that's a very good idea. All right. Enough patting myself on the back. Let's just make sure we record that we've got document 6. So where do we want to go? Let's go back to our discussion. We've got Georgia Price leads and we've got Edgar Allan Poe leads. Jonathan is saying, I think we should probably follow up on Elmer Richardson and perhaps the ancestry records. And then Jonathan is reminding us of the various leads for Georgia. We do have the French lessons that we're told. Who's taking French lessons? Is it Ada Bossi? Is that what? It wasn't Georgia taking French lessons, was it? Maybe it was. Who do we know who's taking French lessons? I remember we wanted to go to the French lessons. We've also got the Film Guild Cinema. Maybe we don't have to do that right away. It was Ada Bossi taking French lessons. Okay, where would you like to go, Jonathan? Where would you like to go? And Motto confirms. And not just Jonathan, but if someone's in the channel, remember you shouldn't wait for me to ask. If you've got someplace you want to go, you just shout it out as soon as it occurs to you. That way we don't have to wait for it back and forth. I am inclined to want to go to the ancestry records. Do we know where we would go for ancestry records? You want to go to Elmer Richardson. I guess ancestry records, we have genealogy and ancestry records right here. We also know the birth and death. Okay, let's look up Elmer Richardson first then. That seems to be, you want to pursue this new lead that's about when we went looking for a con artist. It doesn't feel like we need the con artist woman again, but perhaps I guess if she's married to Elmer, then we could find her at home. I just don't know that it's, well, I suppose if she's shacked up with him, that could be useful to us to know. Seems like it would be a pretty big coincidence, though. Richardson Elmer, there he is, 27339. Mm. 27339. Let's see if that's in our book. 27339 it is. So your instinct was right that we could track him down. 9, it's now 5:30. If we circle T1, which surely we have, we go to 81968. This is Richardson Elmer. We might want to knock on neighbor's door if we think she's a neighbor of him, but we don't know. We have no evidence of that at this point. 81968. Okay. This could just be filling in more story rather than related to our con artist woman. 30 minutes have passed. It's 6 o'clock. Back again to a lead you've already visited in the last few days. You don't even register the deja vu feeling anymore. Looks like it's going to be your new norm. You knock on the door loudly this time. It's only me, Miss Hatsis. There's no need to worry, you tell the nosy neighbor lady when she peers out of her door. Fortunately, the playboy also heard your knock, so he opened the door. Seriously? What do you want now? He makes a face when he sees you. Did you want to talk about it right here, Mr. Richardson, or was it L? I'm sure Miss Hatsis would be delighted. He opens the door and lets you in with a sigh. That's a low blow, threatening me with Miss Hatsis, even for you, Detective. Yeah, I know. What can I say? I live for these little joys, but let's cut the crap and let me tell you why I'm here. I'm waiting with bated breath. He lights up a cigarette, offers you one as well. He doesn't blow smoke rings this time. What can you tell me about Miss Tilly, a dancer at the Village Vanguard? Tilly? Why, you got the hots for her? I've heard some cop tried to feel her up yesterday, so she had to call for Big Jim, who chased the dick away. Is that you, Detective? Who would have thought? There's life in the old dog yet, he snickers. The wound left by your disgraceful performance at the Village Vanguard is still too fresh, so you suddenly lose your cool and push this young joker against the wall, knocking the smoke out of his grinning mouth. I don't want to ask you again, boy. I'm afraid I'm rather an impatient man. He puts up his hands. All right. No more jokes. I got it. You let him go and he starts to spill. So you want to know about Tilly, huh? I don't really know much about her. We're not buddies or anything, just because we work at the same clip joint, you know. Most of the people who work there have a past they want to forget or a present they aren't too proud of. It's the least said the best with most of them. But, you know, you hear things like what I've heard one time, Tilly mentioning to someone she hates her real name, Matilda. And another time I overheard a phone call when someone called her Miss Frolova on the other end of the line. So you see, Detective, I don't really know if that's her real name. I'm just telling you what I heard. Frolova. That sounds Russian, you know. Yeah, she uses a Russian accent sometimes. For example, when she tries to turn on the old lechers she dances for. They supposedly like exotic Russian girls better. Oh, I'm sorry, Detective. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings again. That's enough. This frickin' playboy is insufferable, but you got what you came for. I hope I won't see you again, ever. Same here, detective, he snickers after you. Circle marker Owen. All right, so this was a substantial lead. We got what looks like her name, her real name, O1, and her real name is Matilda Krolova. Okay, so we know what alias she's operating under, and now we know her real name. 6 o'clock, we've got an hour before French lessons. Let's try to go to genealogy. Genealogy and ancestry records, 51517. I feel like this is the, well, let's see if it's used first, and then we will comment on the fact that it might never have been used in a previous case. 51517. 51517. No entry. It's possible that this didn't exist when Anna wrote her case. 51517. So maybe we go to instead the birth and death records that we visited at one point and didn't see an entry. 89869. Anna says it's a bug. 9869 is 124. So remember, we did do this. We're going to go ahead and do this. Anna says a bug, but maybe Anna can explain what this is. We came here before. We didn't have V2 marked. We don't know what it is, but we can go there if we want to. 74531, births and deaths. Meanwhile, we'll wait for Anna to tell us. 4531 is birth and death records. V2. We don't want to use the marker we have for births and death records. I'm not sure we want to, but we think that's about Monroe. Probably. All right, well, Anna says bug, but that's not that helpful. Is there more to come? She says 24500 was births and deaths. I don't know how that got changed. But it's certainly possible. Ancestry records used to be 24500, huh? Okay, well, in the current one, 24500 is business and finance. And Jonathan says we should see if we can find Tilly in the white pages. That's a good point, too. Okay, so one thing at a time. You don't want to go to the births and deaths, but ancestry bug. Anna says it is 24500. Okay, that's fine. That's just a little lead number fix, easily fixed, but we're going to go to ancestry. This is a section of the library that has ancestry records. If you have markers L and R, do we have markers L and R? I think we have most of the markers L and R. Yes, we do. So we can go 59666. So we went to 24500, which is directing us to 59666. It's at 6 p.m. And then this is ancestry. Okay. Kind of excited about this lead, but let's see if it confirms our theory. 59666. Okay. You're looking for a Bostonian family. Just a minute here. Librarian's climbing a ladder to retrieve a huge volume from a high shelf. 30 minutes. It's now 6:30. For a moment, you fear he'll be buried under it, but he returns safely with the dusty book. What else do you know about the family? Person I'm looking for had an ancestor who was born around 1828 in Boston to a father probably called Edgar A. Perry. The man looks up the letter P, coughs for a minute or two, and then when the dust settles, starts perusing the pages. Feels like ages when he finally looks up. Yeah, I think I found him. Edgar Allan Perry. He and Jenny Lewis had a son called Edgar Allan Perry Jr. on June 19, 1928. Jr. had a son with Mary Louisa Longhorn called Edgar Allan Perry, born on November 11, 1863, and twin daughters named Elizabeth and Frances Perry, born May 8, 1869. Twins didn't have any children, but the son married Margaret Keynes in 1882 and had his own son, Edward Allan Perry, on June 2nd, 1883, who died the same year. He also had a daughter named Elizabeth Frances Perry, born on September 7, 1885. Is she the one you were looking for? Yeah, I hope so. Thank you for your help. Okay, so 100%. There's our girl, who we had found. So Anna is agreeing with my theory about if you already anticipated this answer, mark to reputation. I think that's a great idea. And I'm going to start, I think we start recommending that as a general way to do these kinds of things. So Anna has retconned it into a case. We're going to get a bonus to reputation for anticipating this. I wonder if it needs to be so blatant here either. I wonder if you couldn't get rid of this line. Is she the one you were looking for? I hope so. I think you don't need that. I think that's just gilding the lily. I think the player should be able, surely, to figure out for themselves that that's the one they were looking for. I mean, there is our confirmation. 100%. Pretty cool that we figured that out ahead of time. I'd give us more reputation than 2. I feel like maybe 5 reputation for figuring that out ahead of time. But it's the satisfaction of doing it more than the reputation. But I don't mind having the extra. I don't mind getting the official credit for it. Okay. You want to go check for Matilda in the white pages. Okay, it's 6:30. We've got a half hour before our French lessons. Let's take a look if Frolova is in the directory. We can stop her before she even shows up. I don't know if that's wise. Do we really want to stop her, or do we want to catch her in the act? I mean, if she sees us knock on her door, is she going to abort the whole plan, in which case we don't get a chance to arrest her? I suppose we could look her up in the directory and then decide. Frolova. Well, lots of F. F-R-O-S, F-R-O, there she, oh, Frolova ripsthymia. That's interesting. So we have a Frolova ripsthymia. Sister, maybe? Do you want to knock on this door? That's the question. Could just be under a different name. 28365. 28365. She lives in the Lower East Side, close enough to the village that it would make sense. The question is, do you want to spend a half an hour knocking on this door? Should this be a special instruction or just a general rule? Anytime you find a marker you already anticipated, give yourself a reputation. Yeah, I don't know. Jonathan says, let's knock on this door. So we're going to knock on this door. All right, let's see who ripsthymia. I mean, we've seen her face, so hopefully we'll recognize her if it's her. 28365. I think it is really cool how we're 28365 isn't in our thing, so we don't have to overthink it. She's not in our directory. She's not in our directory at all. 28365, whether it's Matilda or not. Anna seems to think there should be an entry for her. There should be a Matilda Frolova. These are just some of these directory bugs that are probably my fault in changing the directory in the year since this was written. Thankfully, we have Anna here, so there's no harm. But do you have a lead number? You have a lead number for us, 27 West 4th Street. I don't know how all of these directory bugs occurred or when. Playtesters didn't record this, but they played it a year ago. Well, we can try to see. It's possible that they stuck through. It's certainly possible that it's probably my fault. But what was the... do you have a lead number for this person? The lead only said no one's home. Okay. All right. That's fine. And then probably a half hour didn't pass. But we do have a street address for her if we want to try to catch her. Although hopefully we're going to be catching her in the act. Assuming time didn't pass, we still have another lead. Assuming no one answered that door, so not enough time passed. We have a half hour until the French lessons. You got a place you want to go from our list, Jonathan? We've got the newspaper guy, Billy Jones of the Daily News. We've got Horse Club. We've got your other list. You had a nice list of it. We could go to the Belasco Theater. I mean, I wouldn't mind going to the Belasco Theater, and then we'll go on the way. Then we'll head over to the French lessons. Can we visit Ada Bossi at the theater and follow her to the French class? Ada Bossy, yeah, well, let's go to the other theater where we think Audrey Seals is, and then we'll go from there to Ada Bossy. So the Belasco Theater is where Tracy and Audrey Seals are. So let us look up the Belasco Theater. I thought Ada Bossy was at the Great Gatsby, which we went to already. I thought this was the theater that's the new one that we haven't been to. Belasco Theater, 54982. Five, 4982. Page 94. All right, so let's write it down. 54982. The theater on Waverly Place greets you like it's got something to prove. Red brick, dressed up with fancy trim, trying to look respectable in a neighborhood that's seen too much. The upper floors don't quite line up right either, like the building's hiding a crooked thought behind a straight face. You push inside. The box office hits you like a different world, all pillars and carved wood, like a church that forgot its prayers. Colored glass throws soft light around the room, ceiling panels staring down like old judges, murals telling stories nobody remembers anymore. Yeah, this place has history. You tell the attendant you'd like to speak with Miss Seals and with Mr. Tracy. At first he's not too cooperative, but when you mention Edwin Day was the one who sent you here, he finally leads you to the dressing rooms and tells you to wait for the actors. Their break is in 5 minutes. Okay, so now we can talk to Audrey Seals, who is 42256. And we can talk to Tracy, her ex-husband, who is 34414. All right, I want to talk to Audrey Seals, and let's do her first. And I really think there's a chance that our actress is going to show up dead. But, well, I still got my suspicions. All right, we got a nice long conversation with Audrey Seals, and 30 minutes has gone by. It's now 7 p.m. And now we are talking to Audrey Seals. The brunette actress finally appears. She's as elegant and cool as the picture you saw of her. Miss Seals, I'm Detective Lucas. Can I talk to you for a moment? Mr. Stamper told me I could find you here. The actress seems tired, but she signals you to follow her into her dressing room. She sits down in front of her mirror and lights up, using one of those long cigarette holders you've only ever seen on the silver screen before. She offers you a cigarette as well. You accept it. Jerry sent you here? Really? How come? Are you aware, Miss Seals, that Georgia Price has been missing since yesterday? What do you mean, missing? She seemed genuinely surprised, although she's supposedly a good actress, so you're not sure you could tell the difference. No one saw her after she left rehearsal yesterday. Ah, so that's why Eddie canceled today's rehearsal. I wondered what could have happened. And what do you think has happened, Miss Seals? She wants to get back into the headlines. What else? It was always George's main objective to be the center of attention all the time, she says quite bitterly. I guess you've heard about her tantrums last week, how I stole her thunder by getting a divorce. Her selfish little brain couldn't imagine any other reason why someone would file for divorce. It's pathetic, really. So why did you file for divorce? I mean, why now? I was told you forgave your husband after cheating on you last year. Don't waste your time trying to cross-examine me, Detective. I won't talk about my personal life. You've said you're here about Georgia, and I can't help you there. We have different timetables at the Madison, so I haven't seen her since last week. Why don't you want to talk to me about that scandal last fall, Miss Seals? Do you have something to hide? I don't like your manners, Detective. Yeah, I know, they're pretty bad, but tell you what. I promise I'll grieve over them during my lonely evenings if you'll tell me why you suggested just now that Miss Price only disappeared to draw attention to herself. Look, Detective, I don't know anything about George's disappearance. Maybe something happened to her. Maybe she's just pulling a stunt. I don't know. And to be honest, well, I don't even care. And now I need some time for myself before I get back to the stage. So good night, Detective. Looks like you won't get more out of her. Circle marker A2. John says, I guess I'd try to come back and talk to Tracy later. Surely the dance lesson, if we get there a half hour later, it'll be okay? You don't want to take a risk, huh? All right, let's head over to the dance lesson. Then we'll jump back and talk to Tracy afterwards. We should have a half hour. That's it, though. All right, you wanted to go to the dance lesson. So the dance lesson is from the paper. Herman Vance's Dance Hall. We're going there at 7 p.m. on Friday. I'm sure we looked this up in the past, but I'll just look it up again. Herman Vance Dance Hall, 12877. So one of our characters told us they were going dancing. I can't remember if it was Georgia or Ada Bossy, but we knew we wanted to get there. And this one actually doesn't, this paper doesn't say it's at 7, but in our previous paper it did say dance lessons at 7, I believe. There's no entry. I wonder if that's another bug. Good thing we have Anna here. Is there supposed to be a dance hall entry? Where did we get our 7 p.m. from? I'm sure we read it somewhere. I thought the French lessons. Oh, I looked up dance hall, but we want French lessons, not dance hall. Oh, that's what we should have been looking up. Not dance hall, French lessons. Dance hall was our previous case. Okay. French conversation, 7 p.m. at the Blissful Aromatics. Okay, so it was not the dance, it was French lessons, Blissful Aromatics. Okay, so we don't care about the dance hall. Seven p.m. French lessons. This is a tea house. Blissful Aromatics. Blissful Aromatics. 56568. And it is exactly 7 p.m. Five, 6, 5, 6, 8 on page 95. Okay, if it's Friday evening, 7 p.m. or a bit later, which it is, go to 28264. 8246. Miss Azima's French lessons, 30 minutes, so it's now 7:30. There's a jovial lady at a table who's talking rapidly in French to a few women around her. One of them is Miss Bossy. You try to signal her a few times, but the French lady notices you first. Ooh la la, un bon monsieur. Maybe he wants to join our group, n'est-ce pas? Come, messieurs, there's no need to be shy. We welcome everyone here. Am I right, mesdames? All the ladies are looking at you now. You turn as red as a traffic light. No, you misunderstood me, lady. I just need to talk to Miss Bossy for a moment. I'm Detective Lucas from the New York Police. Oh, Detective, comment c'est curieux? Did you hear that, Mademoiselle Ada? Did our little dove commit a crime, perhaps? And she looks questioningly at Miss Bossy, who thankfully is already standing up. I'm coming, detective. You walk to the other side of the tea shop. Where is our Miss Bossy? Looking remarkably like Betty Davis. I'm coming, detective. You walk to the other side of the tea shop, out of earshot of the curious ladies. Miss Bossy, can I talk to you for a moment about Miss Price? Talk about what? She looks at you suspiciously. Have you seen her since yesterday? No, I haven't. Mr. Day canceled today's rehearsal. I was wondering what happened. Is there something wrong with Georgia? Why are you looking for her? No one's really seen her since the rehearsal. Really? That's strange. She was in a good mood yesterday. She said she wanted to take a walk after she left rehearsal. And I saw her dismiss her chauffeur and walk away from the theater cheerfully. You saw her? I thought the rehearsal wasn't over yet. No, it wasn't. But we had a lunch break, so I was going out to eat when I saw Georgia leave. You saw her walk away? In which direction? Towards Union Square. I've never seen her go anywhere on foot, so I found it pretty astonishing. Union Square. She's headed downtown. Was she always driven by her chauffeur? Always, I mean, as far as I've seen since last fall. And do you remember what she was wearing? Black heels, white dress, blue scarf, and she had a light gray coat on when she left. Oh, she also had a gray bag with her. Thank you, Miss Bossy. That's very helpful. Would you tell me about her feud with Miss Seals as well? Yeah, that is pretty bad. Everyone who knows them has witnessed it, of course. Georgia is jealous of Audrey, so she's very hostile towards her. I think Audrey's just as bad as Georgia, just more subtle, more sophisticated, so most people won't notice her insults. Like a few weeks ago, there was a dinner party to celebrate Mr. Day's anniversary as a director, but Georgia forgot about it, so she didn't have a special dress for the occasion. She just wore the same dress she came in that day. When everyone was gathered around the table, Audrey turned to her and said quietly, "Dear Georgia, what a lovely frock." Everyone who heard it was snickering, of course, and Georgia was as red as a beetroot. The look on her face was murderous. Circle B2. Okay, so we got a little bit of extra information here, actually, about... So at 28246, Bossy on Georgia. She gave us a little bit more description, right? Black heels, white dress, blue scarf. I think we knew most of this, but we didn't know about her coat. Light gray coat. And her gray bag, which we did know about. And then she tells us which direction she headed. You saw her walk away towards Union Square. So towards Union Square, how does that help us? Well, it does help us a little bit, because if we look at the map, if you'll remember, the theater is here 28, and Union Square is on 14th Street. So she's headed down this way. And we've got her full description. I don't think there's much chance. It's not, Union Square isn't this park, it's this area, I believe. But towards Union Square, that just suggests to me that we now know she was headed on 5th Avenue downtown. I don't think that gives us much more information. But it's conceivable that we could, now that we have a full description, that we could run into someone who saw her. I take it that she just saw her headed south towards downtown. And the other guy told us 5th Avenue, so I'm just going to assume that he's like, she headed towards this way. But I wonder if it's worth... We only have one more lead to go before 8 p.m. So I think we're basically done. I think we basically... Maybe we go back to the Lasco Theater and talk to Tracy. The other option is to get our reverse directory again and see if we can see someone who spotted her. I just don't know how likely that is to yield fruit. Given that we checked the hotels. Benji's house is down here somewhere. Or here somewhere. So it is completely consistent with her seeing her walk towards Union Square. If she was going to walk to Benji's house. Completely consistent. I suggest we go to Tracy to kill this last half hour, finish up the Velasco, and then we'll be answering our questions about the collector, who I think we've knocked down. How do you feel about that? I just don't see how we're going to find Georgia in the next half hour. However, we got one more lead, so we really could go anywhere. We could try to find the horse club. We could try to find someone who saw her. We could go to the Daily News. I see sounds good in the channel. I think that means sounds good to go back to Tracy for our final thing. 34414. Sometimes you go to a place just so that you don't lose your place and get off track. So here we're talking to Tracy, which is another half hour. It's now 8 p.m. We did try going to Benji's house, Jonathan. We did. No one answered the door. And we thought we'd come back on Sunday, I think it said. All right, so now we're talking to Tracy. And remember, Tracy is the guy who broke up the marriages, who likes to help the young actresses. Yeah, this guy's the company's golden boy, the kind that makes hearts flutter and mirrors work overtime. You've seen his type before, always smiling like he's got a secret, always laying it on thick with the dames, and soaking up every bit of attention like it's oxygen. You can't stand men like that. Mr. Tracy, I'm Detective Lucas. Do you have a moment to talk? Mr. Stamper told me I could find you here. The guy looks at you a bit dubiously. What do you want to talk about? I only have 20 minutes before I have to go back on stage. He doesn't seem too friendly. Have you seen or heard about Miss Price since yesterday, Mr. Tracy? Why? Just answer me, please. No, I haven't. Ed canceled today's rehearsal, but didn't say why. It's a pretty surprising thing to do 2 days before the premiere. Did something happen to Georgia? She's been missing since yesterday. Oh, what do you mean she's missing? The guy suddenly looks scared. Well, what it usually means, Mr. Tracy. No one saw her since yesterday's rehearsal. Do you think something could have happened to her? How would I know that? Now he's practically panicking. Calm down, Mr. Tracy. These are just routine questions I'm asking everyone. He goes inside his dressing room and nervously fishes out a smoke from his jacket. You follow him. How did Miss Price seem to you yesterday? What do you mean? Is this guy really this dumb, or is he trying to hide something? Well, nervous, afraid, the usual. The usual, I guess. Maybe a bit less annoying. She was in a good mood, I guess. In a good mood, really. I mean, she wasn't so awful to her court. The fairies in the play. She usually torments them every time we take a break. Torments them, saying nasty things to them about being too fat or too ugly to hope for bigger roles in the future. She also uses all the costume and set designers. or everyone working at the theater, really, to run her errands all the time. She usually doesn't even thank them. Yesterday, she said thank you when someone brought her a coffee. That's when I first thought, Georgia's having a good day. I see, Mr. Tracy. And did Miss Price say anything about the cause of her good mood? No, she didn't say anything about that. It was just my impression, as I said. Anything else you could recall about yesterday? Aren't you on good terms with Miss Price? I've heard she was the one who saved your marriage last fall. It wasn't for my benefit, you can be sure of that, Detective. She was just afraid Ed would cancel the play if things didn't get back to normal. So no, we weren't buddies with Georgia. And now, if you don't mind, I'll have to rest a bit. I hope you find her, but I really do need to rest. Goodbye. Circle T2. And we've already talked to Audrey Seals. Why is he... What? This is a weird reaction from him, right? Why did he get all nervous? He's practically panicking when we say... Or she said... When we said she's missing, why is he panicking? That seems weird. Anna says, I made a change to Ada's statement to be more helpful. I don't think we need more helpful from her. I don't think. You think we need it. But I'm more curious why this guy's panicked. I'm going to make a note here in my card on him. Or you could tell us if you think it's important. Why panic about Georgia? 34414. Any theories? She's in a good mood. Well, that makes sense because she's about to stage her own kidnapping. I just don't know why this guy is why this guy's panicking. What do you mean she's missing? The guy suddenly looks scared. Where'd all my coffee go? My coffee and tea is missing. I brought into the kitchen for more water. Jonathan says we could look around Washington Square Park. It's too late. It's 8 p.m. It's time for our end of evening. Oh, Anna says the Ada Bothie was telling us where she headed. Okay, Anna, go ahead. Tell us. You can tell us what she said, but what the? It's not going to matter. We have to go to questions. All right, it's the end of our day. We're going to questions. Now, where are we really going? It sounds like it wants us to turn to the end of the document, questions part 1. Is that right, Anna? Day 2. So it's a little unusual in that read questions part 1. So I guess we're meant to go. I'll show Anna how to maybe do that a little bit cleaner. But here we go. Questions part 1, 183. All right, this is pretty exciting. I think we will take a break here before we confront these questions. All right, well, it's a nice confirmation here. It says read only read these questions, part 1, if it's Friday between 6 and 9:30. Oh, do we want to take some extra time? Well, let's see if we have all the markers here. A1, let me get my list here. All right, let's see what we got. We got A1. We got I1. We got L1. We got N1. We have O1. P1. Q1. X1. R1. T1. We got them all. So, good work. If you have all of these markers, record +1 thorough on our campaign log. Where have we been keeping our campaign log here? Okay, Jesse. Okay. So +1 thorough we got for having found all those ahead of schedule. Or at least on schedule. If you have the whole first alphabet from A1 to Z1, get 5 reputation and meticulous. We don't have A1 through Z1. We are missing a bunch. Well, 3. We're missing F1, H1, and N1. F, H, and N. Okay. So we're not meticulous. That's okay. Now, if you don't have all these markers, you probably won't be able to answer all the questions thoroughly. You can go back and follow more leads now if you want, but you have to check 1 demerit box for every lead you visit. If you decide not to go back, record an impatient. Love it. Okay, I love it. If you need hints about the collector or the planned job, go to the hints for the collector, 2 points per hint. But you only have to deduct these points if the hints tell you any information. Okay, that's great. And when you're ready to go to the next page. Okay, that's pretty cool. I really like this stuff because it's going to be interesting to see how different groups. I'd love to see someone who got this meticulous. Pretty cool. This is what you want. You don't want to get a perfect score, but you want to get some reward. I feel like it might have been nice to give us some reputation for finding all these. Like, if you have all the markers, record +1 thorough and +2 reputation. Would have been nice. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we will answer questions, which is very exciting. I'll see you in 8 minutes. Tidying up my notes here. All right, this is pretty exciting. We are about to answer some questions that we've been itching to answer for several game days here and several real-life days. And we think we know the answers. That's partly why we're in a good mood. Now, we've convinced Anna that we should get some reputation bonus for having all the normal markers. Not meticulous, not +5, but +2. Anna agrees to. So we're going to give ourselves 2 extra reputation. All right, we're about to answer some questions. Here we go. Questions part 1, the collector. Christopher Street Boarding Houses, January 18, Friday. You're back at Brooks Place as you promised, and with all the details anyone would need to catch a thief and their elusive client. The kid will be delighted, but first things first. What did Dr. Oliver say? That I'm definitely improving, and I don't have to stay in bed for long. Now I can sit in the bed, and even write a bit if my head's not hurting. He's obviously very happy about that, and you are too, if you're being honest with yourself, just like Mole, this kid. Like you said in the hospital, but you only say, oh, is that so? Yes, so I prepared my notebook in advance to write down the things you found today. And he grabs the notebook eagerly. Because what do we say, you lecture him? It's not the detective who solves the case, but the notes. Without good notes, you can't be an effective cop, he recites dutifully. That's right, kid. But you still need to improve your handwriting. Those chicken scratches hardly count as notes. You eye his terrible squiggles. Yes, sir, he writes down notes in capital letters. Better? For now. But let's start. Are you ready to ask the important questions? He nods. Okay, then hit me. Who is the collector and what is he trying to steal? Who did he hire for the job and how could we prevent this crime? Give detailed explanations for every question, including names, times, locations, motives, means, and opportunity, and every piece of evidence you found or theory you constructed. You can write down your answers here. Okay, who is the collector? The collector is Elizabeth Frances Perry, who we have on our list here. Elizabeth Frances Perry, who's an ancestor of Edgar Allan Poe. Did we say the grandchild of a grandchild of a relative? What is he trying to steal? Why is it personal to him? He's trying to steal the Sphinx, a manuscript of Edgar Allan Poe's. And I wonder if we shouldn't read that again. Is it because it's not just that they're relatives? Are they... They're not the sweetheart, right? We think it's just a relative of him, so they thought they should have inherited it. I mean, we got at the genealogy the exact relations, so are we being sloppy by not writing down the exact relationship? Feels like actually that one could say that we should have been more careful about writing down her exact relationship. Where are my notes about this? I always thought they were an illegitimate decedent. Was that it? Kind of crazy that we read that. I was just so we knew the name. Let me just make a quick look at that because that seems like kind of important. 2,4,500. Kind of ridiculous that we didn't read it more carefully given how important it is. 59666. Okay, let's take it closer. Now let's pay a little bit more attention. So we're looking about this family from Boston. An ancestor was born to a father called Edgar Allan Perry for Edgar Allan Poe. Okay, so Edgar Allan Perry has a son with Jenny Lewis on 1928. Where is our... Which one? Of course, they're naming themselves the same name. 1809. So 1809 is Edgar Allan Poe born. And so what we've got is Edgar Allan Perry and Jenny Lewis have a son. Edgar Allan Poe has a son, Edgar Allan Perry, on 1828. That one himself has a son with Mary Louisa Longhorn, also called Edgar Allan Perry, 1863, and twin daughters, Elizabeth and Frances. The twins don't have any children, but the son marries someone else and has another son, Edgar Allan Perry Jr. They're all called Edgar Allan Perry. Edward, Edgar, they just keep that basic name as down through the generations. He died, and a daughter named Elizabeth Frances Perry, born 1885. That's the one that's coming to this dinner. So it's just a descendant. It's just a descendant. A kid from Poe's assumed name when he was in the army, but must have never married the woman he had the child with. So you're saying they never actually got married, but she's a descendant. Okay, back to our questions then. So he's trying to, it's not a he. Look at this clever little, look at this little thing throwing us off the track. What is he trying to steal? It's a her. She's trying to steal the Sphinx. I still feel like we are going to lose some points because we're not connecting it to the sweetheart. Do you not think I'm right about that? What is the date on the Sphinx? Like, remember we were told that the book was inspired by a friend, so I think the sweetheart might be the Jenny Lewis who inspired the book, which is why Elizabeth Frances Perry, who descended from them, illegitimate, thinks she should have received it. That's why it's personal. Descendant of Edgar Allan Poe and descendant of the woman who inspired the story, so it's rightfully should be hers. Okay, who did he hire for her job? He hired Matilda Berlova, the con woman, and he hired her to pretend she was a waitress. Okay, so how could we prevent this crime? I think how would you and Finley, whose otherwise name is Gant, he hired Gant to hire Orlova. Good. Okay, and now how would you prevent this crime? I think we would just, I think the thing to do would be you'd replace one of the waiters with a cop, an undercover, and have him just keep a very close eye on Matilda Furlova, who's operating under the fake name of Pearl Ramsey as a waitress, and you just tail her the whole time, and don't be distracted by anything, and the moment she grabs it, you nab her with proof. Maybe you get a photograph, and then you stop them both. All right, have we got it all? Anything else you want to go on the record about? We've got her address of Matilda Furlova, where she can be found, but I think we're going to catch her in the act. I don't think we got to catch her at home, yeah? Basically what you're saying, but also maybe keep some eyes on Elizabeth. Yeah, let's tell them that Elizabeth is going to be there. All right, here we go. You talk very seriously as if you're standing in front of the chief. First of all, I have to correct you there, kid. When you ask about the collector, you should say she instead of he. Because, wait for it, the collector is a woman. Are you serious? The kid looks at you in astonishment. Has a heart attack, but let me present the whole case to you in order. Last week, a rumor started in underground circles that the collector, with deep pockets and shallow morals, was hiring again. Big payout, dirty work, the usual. Her intermediary this time was Victor Romeo Gaunt, a sleazy agent of Edgar Tate & Co., who used the name Mr. Finley to disguise his real identity. I met him earlier at his office and recognized him from the description Jimmy gave me about Finley. I broke into his apartment to find the collector's letter there. Gant needed a grifter with light fingers and a flexible relationship with the law. The job? Crash the Poe Society dinner Saturday night and swipe a freshly discovered manuscript, a little bedtime story called The Sphinx. The dinner details were printed in last week's Villager. Handy thing, newspapers. Wrap fish in them one day, planned felonies with them the next. So Finley carried the paper while he interviewed crooks, liars, and other promising professionals. Plus 15 points. We understood everything there. A few days ago, he finally hired a conwoman, a dancer from the village vanguard who goes by the name Miss Tilly. Her real name's Matilda Furlova, and she lives at 27 West 4th Street. She wants to pose as one of the Hotel Lafayette's waitresses for the night. The real waitress, Nathania Vaughn, oh, that was it, Nathania Vaughn, not Pearl, was paid off to call in sick. The manager, Mr. Jones, hired Tilly for the night through the Rapid Staffing Services, where she registered as a waitress under the alias of Pearl Ramsey. I guess Tilly got her name and address from the white pages. Okay, so it was Pearl Ramsey. What was the... Oh, the real waitress. I see. Yeah. Pearl Ramsey is the name that the conwoman took. All right, so we got that right. I guess Tilly just got her name and address from the white pages. The real Miss Ramsey is an old lady with a herd of cats. Tilly plans to snatch the manuscript during the Poe dinner, where it will be displayed on a pedestal without an alarm. Plus 20 points. We understood all of that. And now to the really interesting topic of who this mysterious collector is and why she wants the manuscript so badly. It seems the collector is none other than one of the dinner's guests, Elizabeth Frances Perry, Edgar Allan Poe's great-granddaughter. Plus 10 points. How wonderful. Hey, not an official great-granddaughter, of course. The official line of Poe died out because he never had children with his wife Virginia, and sources don't know about any illegitimate children either. But what if the sources are wrong? Poe enlisted in the Army in 1827 using the name Edgar A. Perry. He needed fake documents because he claimed he was 22 years old, although he was actually only 18. He served in Boston Harbor for 2 years. Poe enlisted in the Army in 1827 using the name Edgar A. Perry. It turns out that our recently discovered short story goes back to those times he spent in Boston as well. Although Poe wrote the final version of The Sphinx in 1844 in New York, in Greenwich Village to be precise, the idea came from one of his early sweethearts, from before the 1832 cholera epidemic. Plus 10 points. We got that. The collector, a.k.a. Miss Perry, mentioned in her letter to Miss Gant that she thinks the manuscript is her rightful inheritance, just as all her names are. Remember how much we focused on that? But why would she think that? And what are those names? Elizabeth Frances Perry. The last name Perry comes from Poe's alias he used as a soldier in Boston in 1827. I suppose he wooed Miss Perry's great-grandma under this name. Maybe he even married her as this Perry. That I don't know for sure. But the collector's grandfather, Edgar Allen Perry Jr., was born in 1828 from a father named Edgar A. Perry. This Jr. later had a son, Edward Allen Perry, Miss Perry's father. The first and middle names come from Poe's two mothers, her birth mother, Elizabeth Poe, and the mother who raised him, Frances Allen. Looks like both last names are hereditary in the family. Miss Perry has twin aunts with those names. So it seems our collector's great-grandmother, Jenny Lewis, was that early sweetheart who gave Poe the idea of this short story. That's why it's so personal to Miss Perry, and that's why she thinks of it as her rightful inheritance. So plus 25 points. 100% we got correct. Anna says, hey, you could have asked Vaughn, the waitress who called in sick, to discover she was paid off, but you assumed it, right? Actually, we missed that. In fact, I made the wrong assumption about that. So we knew she called in, but you make a good point. She was paid off to call in sick. We got 20. I marked 20 points for that, but we actually shouldn't get full points. I'm going to give us minus 4 points. I'm going to give us minus 4 points because I assumed that the con woman had rigged some other way that she would call in sick. But this is the much more straightforward way. Just pay her off. But we didn't figure that out. We didn't discover that. So I am docking us 20%. That's too much to dock. We figured out everything important. But this one criminal slipped through our thing. So I'm going to give us 20 minus 3 equals 17 points. I subtracted 3 points. Anna says, you didn't really explain the collector's first and last names. I mean, we just noticed that they were all descendants of Edgar Allan Perry. You think we missed some of that? I mean, we noted how they were just passing the names down. Edgar to Edward. I don't know how much more specific we have to be. You think we should lose some points for that? We figured out there's the sweetheart. That feels like we should be getting full points for that, but you can tell me if you think we should deduct a few. All right, let's continue here. That's why she thinks it's her rightful inheritance. The Elizabeth and the Frances. You mean she took it from the mother who was the sweetheart? We said Jenny Lewis was the sweetheart. Okay, well, let's get back to that. Let me not get too far off track. Miss Perry tried to buy the manuscript from Princeton after it was discovered, but they refused her offer. But then the Poe Society dinner came along where this precious document would be displayed without the university's usual security measures. Our collector immediately reached out to Gant to hire him as a middleman, and she also managed to put herself on the guest list. She obviously wants to keep an eye on things. No one knows who she is, not Miss Tilly, not even Mr. Gant, so she can watch the events unfold with her own eyes. Well, that's plus 10. We understood all of that. But we know who she is, exclaims Brooke triumphantly. Exactly, kid, and we'll foil her plan. But first I need to convince the chief of this whole scheme so he'll give me some extra men I can use at the dinner. Strictly undercover, of course. We'll need to wait for Tilly to actually steal the manuscript, then strike and pinch her and Miss Perry. So how are you planning to convince the chief? Asked the kid with worry in his voice. Well, I'll write up an official report and present it to him. I hope it will convince him. I suppose you won't mention the circumstances under which you became aware of the collector's letter to to Gant, muses Brooke. Yeah, you're sharp, kid. No. I'll only tell him I got the copy through an underworld connection, which is precisely what you've told the kid about the way you found out that Tilly was the thief Finley hired. What Brooke doesn't know won't corrupt him. The only addition I'd like to make to my report, besides the things I've just told you, is your name beside mine at the end. Seriously? He can't believe his ears. That's right, kid. We investigated this case together after all. I hardly did anything, besides playing dead for almost a day, then laying in bed some more. His voice is bitter. You don't have to do me favors just 'cause you pity me. Ah, come on, kid. Don't play down your role. You were the one who started this whole thing by following the collector's trail to the Willoughby. Yeah, a false trail, which wasn't even connected to the case, but almost got me killed. Yeah, and that is precisely how the investigation goes. How an investigation goes. I mean, not the almost got killed part. Thankfully, that's rare. But following a false trail, it's most of our job. You have to follow all the trails to be able to separate the true ones from the false. So your name goes on that report. And it's not some kindness on my part, just a fact. Seems you succeeded in convincing him, although you do pity this young cop, especially because of Marie, but you both avoided mentioning her name or anything connected to her since the hospital. Good, you can't stand sentimentality. So I have my work cut out for me. Good night, kid. I'm off to the station. That report won't write itself. Add up your points, write them down. If you got at least 80 points, which we did, let's see if Anna wants us taking off points. Okay, Jonathan agrees we should lose some points. Elizabeth and Francis were both biological and adoptive mother's name. We didn't remember. Pick up on that. All the names were in an errors. All right. So you want me to take off some points from that, huh? All right, I'll take off another 3 points. Seems like penalizing us quite a bit, but okay, I'm going to take up another 3 points, which brings us to 23 for that one instead of 22 for that one instead of 25. Okay, so what is our total here? 20, 32, 42, 52, 74, 84. Add up your points, write them down. If you've got at least 80 plus 1 analytical. Plus 1 analytical. Pretty interesting. Thorough, analytical, a little bit romantic, a little bit cultured. I don't think we're going to get a waffle mark on this one. Okay, this is actress part 1 score. And now it says, if it's not the end of the day, you can still visit leads and late night leads after that. There's no mention of any late night leads. So I don't think that I don't see how we're allowed to do anything more. There's no mention of when late night leads. Should we assume that? I don't think we even have late night leads to do. We don't have special late night leads. So we've now finished. Here was our day 1, just to recap. Here was our long day 1. And then here was our day 2, significantly shorter, but still took us 6 hours plus 3 hours, almost 9 hours. And we have finished day 2. Day 2 of 5. Yeah, well, I don't know. That's a good question. Jonathan says, are we assuming we couldn't find Georgia with a late night lead? Anna says, I can tell you what Ada's rewrite would say. Okay, go ahead, Anna. Tell us what. So I want to comment a couple things at this juncture, having wrapped up this collector's case. I mean, I love it. I love this story. I love I love that we're on multiple tracks. But what I think is really interesting, what I think has been really interesting about this whole trilogy is that the name of the trilogy is The Collector, and it's so interesting that, like, in the first case, we barely scratched The Collector. Second case, we barely scratched The Collector. And in the third case, it was a much more substantial chunk, but it's now wrapped up. Isn't that fascinating? Like, what is that even called when you've made the case about the collector, but then the collector is just this sort of through line, but not the focus of these cases? I find that fascinating and quite satisfying. All right, it sounds like maybe John says, I guess there could still be complications with the collector. That's an interesting idea. It sounds like maybe we might want to use some late night time here to track down Georgia a little bit. Okay, Ada said she head toward the subway station. Now that is intriguing. So let's take a look at this for a second. Now, I don't know what subway station she's talking about. That doesn't really make much sense. If the theater is here, the guy says she goes on 5th Avenue. She's headed toward Union Square. Like, that feels like there's no train station here, but maybe she means here. All right, let's look at 35 then. Let's look at our reverse directory, which we haven't looked at for a while. Let's see if we can catch her. That's a little confusing because if she went down 5th Avenue, I guess she could turn here. Might be nice for Ada to say she went down 5th Avenue and turned on 23rd Street as if she was headed towards the subway. Saying she was going to Union Square, I guess it would be better if Ada said she went down 5th Avenue and then down Broadway. She headed down Broadway. That would be more useful. Okay, then we would know she went down this path. It sounds like Ada Bossi was having her go more this way. She just said she went south on Broadway towards the train station. That would be more useful than saying Union Square, because how does she know? But towards it, it's reasonable enough. Okay, let's take a look. Block 35 of Gramercy Park. Cemetery, gas station, subway, life insurance. Medical market. All right, so I suppose we have no reason to connect her to these people, but you could imagine that there's a reason she's going to the cemetery. Jonathan says, how many demerits are we willing to take? I think I'm willing to take a couple. What's the most likely thing? If she's going towards the subway, maybe the most likely thing is the subway. Shall we see if she went in the subway? I mean, that seems unlikely. But if that's where she was headed toward, We think she stayed in the area, though. That's the thing. So it's hard to see how she would be going in a subway. She could have gone in the gas station, though, to make a call or something. Do you want to check these two places? Let's try the subway, and if that fails, maybe we try the gas station. But, okay, subway. So if she hits that subway, what subway stop is that? 23rd Street. Broadway and 23rd Street, 60941. Oh, there is an entry. Okay, now we need to be careful about this because we need to start penalizing ourselves. So we're going to make a line here. This is our after 8 p.m. So we're allowed to go to more leads, we think, but we're going to take demerits for that, which is okay. I'm willing to go overtime with a little bit of demerits. Time's not passing, it's just after 8. Okay. 60491. This is the subway. 0941. That's interesting. Georgia does not seem the type that would get on a subway, but she's proud of herself. Okay. BMT subway station, Broadway and 23rd. If you've circled marker B2, which we have, 11696. Okay, I'm going to give us our first demerit for that. I mean, it's not our first demerit, but our first demerit of the evening. 11696. It would be great if someone recognizes her. When you asked the station attendant about a beautiful platinum blonde wearing a light gray coat and a blue scarf, we could even show him the picture, carrying a gray bag yesterday around 2 p.m. It might make sense for us for this to say that we show him the picture of Georgia, right? Because we've got this picture, we've been given this picture. It would make sense that we would actually not just describe her, but show him the picture. Carrying a gray bag yesterday around 2 p.m. It's good. We knew the exact time. He immediately remembers. Oh, yeah, I saw her. Blue scarf was on her head, but a little blonde hair peeked out. She was also wearing sunglasses, but you could still see how beautiful she was. But you know, the most surprising thing was she went up to the bum who sleeps here most days and she started talking to him. What on earth? I remember thinking. I was about to step in and ask her if I could be of assistance, then she just handed something to the tramp and boarded the next subway. Which direction? Towards Union Square, so downtown. And the bum? He's right over there, snoring. He points toward the other end of the station. Thanks. The attendant touches the brim of his cap. You walk toward the other end of the station to check out the homeless guy yourself. He's sleeping all right, cradling a wine bottle. You have to nudge him a few times before he opens his eyes with difficulty. Ah! Hey, buddy. Look, there's a pretty buck waiting for you if you can answer me a few questions. You dangle the money in front of his face. That wakes him up pretty quickly. Yeah. I've been told a pretty lady gave you something yesterday afternoon. What was it? He suddenly narrows his eyes. I don't know what you're talking about. No, because I thought she gave you 2 letters to deliver to the theater across the street. I was also thinking she gave you some money, and told you you'd get more if she heard that the letters got delivered. The bum's mouth drops open in surprise. How'd you know? Well, it's a talent of mine. So how about the other letter? You offer him a banknote. He stares at the money for a few minutes and then decides to take it. And he fishes out a letter from under his coat. Circle document 13, the second ransom note. How do we know there's a second letter? I don't get that. Because we didn't guess there was a second letter. Shouldn't we have surmised that she gave him a letter? And then after we pay him, then he says something like, you want the second letter? Shouldn't that be how this dialogue happens? Or did the station attendant tell him he gave her 2 letters? No, she handed something to the tramp. Feels like this dialogue... The first letter said there'd be further instructions. That's not enough for me. That's what Anna is saying, that the first letter said, we'll send location tomorrow. Okay, I see it does say we'll send location tomorrow. I still think that's a bit of a stretch. Maybe if I was the editor, I would say, even if you wanted to do that, I would maybe say we got him to give us the $1 for the letter, and then maybe we think about it and say, she didn't happen to give you a second letter, or maybe I think it would be more interesting if he surprised us with this. You could even have Lucas remember when the bum says, what about the other letter? We could say that's when we remembered the ransom note mentioned further instructions. Just my personal opinion. John says, it seems we were supposed to find this on day 1. We're quite behind. But we couldn't get Ada Bossi until today, Jonathan, so I'm not sure. I mean, you could have found this, but I'm okay with when we found it. All right, let's get our document 13. The second planned ransom note. So what's cool about this is that we talked about how she must have stayed in the neighborhood if she delivered that note. But now it looks like she's depending on this bum to deliver the note. Okay, and then we're supposed to circle marker H2, which is one of these ones we could return to. So H2. And H2 has a asterisk, meaning one of our come back to it said H2. So here, at the precinct, that's where we're going to ask them to investigate. So what it says here now is, now you can send Flatfoots to every subway station from Madison toward Union Square to find out where Miss Price got off. You can ask for the result at the police station in an hour, or if that would be after the end of your day, next morning. And Jonathan is asking what I think what I have question as well. Can we wait till day 3, or will that break things? And while Anna is telling it, so what we should wait, according to our time, we should wait till day 3. The only question is, are we going to get badly punished and break the game if we wait till day 3? And meanwhile, we will take a look. And it says you can wait till day 3. Great. That means you did well designing the case. Okay, we're going to make a note to go back to the police station. Why is the camera. Are you seeing dropped frames? No, but sometimes the camera, the frame rate starts to slow down visually. It's like something has made it crazy. Okay, return to GV precinct with H2. I'm going to put a little note so we don't forget to go back and see where she got off. All right, you ready to see this? Jonathan says, yes, it did seem laggy. Okay, I think it's okay now. All right, let's take a look at the second ransom note. This is our last item for the day. Put the money in a bag and drop it off at the subway station on Saturday morning at 6 a.m. or she's dead. We are not kidding. Spelled with only one D. At the subway station on Saturday morning. I assume she means at this subway station. So let's write down Broadway and 23rd subway station, Saturday, 6 a.m. drop off. You suppose she's going to use this bum to do the pickup? Six a.m. Saturday. Put the money in a bag. Drop it off at the subway station. Who's collecting it? The bum? Can he be trusted to not keep that money for himself? Maybe she's developed a relationship with him. But yeah, is anyone planning on paying this money? It doesn't seem like it. And when is this note going to be delivered? It seems like it's a little late. I don't think she picked the right person to deliver these messages because it's Friday night at 10 p.m. If they're supposed to deliver the money at 6 a.m. Saturday morning, wouldn't this note have to have already gotten to them? I don't know about this plan. Maybe she doesn't really care about this part. She hasn't thought this through. She's not that smart. And maybe she doesn't really think she's going to get the money. And it seems like it maybe Sunday morning would make more sense. Anna says, yeah, it should say Sunday morning. Aha, okay. Should probably say Sunday morning. John says, that's why I was saying it seems like we were supposed to be here on day one. Yes, possibly. All right, anything else we want to talk about before we end the stream? I mean, I am loving this. I'm loving how epic it is and how long it is and how rich these characters are. I love that we're still dealing with this little troupe of neurotic actors. This fake kidnapping that it's this fake kidnapping that's gonna have to be deeper than it seems. It's crazy that we're only finished with day 2 of 5. Even if it was day 2 of 4, it seems crazy. John says, I'm curious if something's going wrong today. I mean, it's only been 3 hours. Do you want to end the stream? Yeah, I think we're going to end the stream here so that we can start fresh tomorrow on day 3. And it just wants us to keep going. Don't you think we should end the stream here, Jonathan? I think we should. I think we had a really very cool trajectory of today's session. And it says there's a better stopping point on day 3. Well, we're probably gonna have to stop on day 3 anyway. We have to stop here. That we have to be able to enjoy and sit with our victory of figuring out the collector and this con woman. I need to be able to enjoy that. And I think the trick to enjoying this long, epic case is to not push it, to play sessions that are reasonable in length. Jonathan says I'm neutral. I mean, if you could get Jonathan to say we should do it, I would do it. But I think, no. Years ago, Jonathan convinced me that when it's a coin flip about whether to stop or continue, you should stop. And it says more enjoyment's coming on day 3. Great. That's why we're going to stop here. All right, we're going to stop with this session. Really a ton of fun. It was so satisfying to answer those questions and catch the collector and the person that they hired. And it feels like this case is all wrapped up. We know Georgia Price is faking her kidnapping. It's clear as day. We don't know exactly where she's hiding, but how hard can it be? And yet, there's more to come. All right, we'll stop here. I'll see you tomorrow evening, which is really today evening, Monday night, 10 p.m. I'll schedule that stream as soon as we wrap up here. I'll see you then.